Got it.
Nice.
Welcome to the Knife Show, where we dissect the human psyche and society. I'm Denzel Mensa, and I'm an ENFJ.
And I'm Joyce Meng, and I'm an INFJ. And today we're here to talk about the movie Her, and we're here to type all the characters in it. And so, yeah, Denzel, would you like to? Ugh. Okay, wait. Can you edit that part?
Probably not.
And so, Denzel, would you like to kick us off with your thoughts?
Yes. So, first and foremost, if you have not seen the movie Her, it is absolutely fantastic. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I think that it's riddled with a whole bunch of insights. It's a movie about a young, lonely man who's just gotten out of a divorce, I believe, and he pretty much finds solace in and romantic love in a artificial intelligence system that's voiced by Scarlett Johansson. So like, why wouldn't you fall in love with her? And essentially, it explores many different ideas, many different concepts. The biggest one that stands out to me from the movie was this idea of relationships. It mainly depends on how you relate to them. I guess the first thing I should say is that, in my opinion, I believe that the main character played by Joaquin Phoenix, if I remember his name correctly, although in the movie his name is Will. Is it Will? Do you remember?
I'm not good with names.
Neither am I. Oh boy. The main character of the movie, his name is Theo, and I believe that he is an INFP personality type. And I believe that the artificial intelligence that he falls in love with, yes, we are typing the artificial intelligence because essentially she has her own personality and consciousness. I believe that she's an ENFJ. And then there are other characters throughout the movie that we'll talk about, like Chris Pratt's in the movie, and there's just overall other characters. However, one of the characters in the movie, I believe her name was Catherine. I believe that she was an INFJ, and something that she said in the movie that was really interesting to me was the idea of when Theo started to doubt his relationship with Samantha, the artificial intelligence, then Samantha essentially, not Samantha, uh, Catherine, the INFJ, or the person that I believe to be INFJ, pretty much told him, like, well, yeah, like, I mean, because he was like, yeah, because isn't this even real? And she had her own relationship with an artificial intelligence because she had just gotten out of her divorce or something like that, or they broke up. But she was, just being close friends with a female artificial intelligence as well. And she was like, I mean, hey, she makes me happy, and I believe that this is real. So for that reason, isn't it real to you? Like, if it's real to you, then that's all that matters.
I even made a new friend. I have a friend, especially an operating system. Charles left her behind, but she's she's totally amazing. You know, she's so smart. She doesn't just see things in black or white. Like, she sees this whole gray area, and she's helping me explore it. And we just bonded really quickly.
Actually, the woman that I've been seeing, Samantha, I didn't tell you, but she's an OS.
What is that like?
It's great, actually. Yeah, I mean, I feel really close to her. Like, when I talk to her, I feel like she's with me. Does that make me a freak?
No, no. I think anybody who falls in love is a freak. It's a crazy thing to do. It's kind of like a form of socially acceptable insanity.
And that was something that really stood out to me, which I believe that all of the ST types, especially, maybe it's just higher SE as well. They're like, what? Because they can't get over the reality of the situation. Like, no, this is an artificial intelligence, and that's just a pattern that I've seen. But for me as an NF and as a higher NI user plus FE Dom, um, I I totally could have related to Theodore in the sense that I would have just been all in. Like, I would have just allowed myself, like, if I'm leaning on this artificial intelligence for a fixed period of time or whatever, to support and satisfy my emotional needs, to make me feel less lonely, to allow me to have someone to talk to, kind of like how people usually have imaginary friends. I think that that's not a really bad coping mechanism in a lot of situations. And I thought that one of the things that was also beautiful in there was Chris Pratt's character in the movie, and like some others, they accepted what was happening between Theo and Samantha. And I thought that was like just a really beautiful thing. Like, they didn't clown him for it. They didn't, like, make him, appear to be anything. They didn't make him appear to look crazy or anything like that. They were just like, all right, cool. Like, you're dating an artificial intelligence. That's awesome. They even spoke to her. They had a whole conversation with her. They went out on a picnic. No spoiler alert. I mean, it's just, it's more about the story than, kind of the events that took place. But anyway, that's some thoughts to start us off with. I believe that Theo's INFP. I believe that Samantha's ENFJ. I believe that Catherine was INFJ. And I also believe that Theo's ex-wife was an ISTJ.
I believe that the actor who plays Theodore, his name is Joaquin Phoenix. I also think that he's an INFP too. And so when you have like an INFP playing an INFP character, you get a really believable setup too. And so one of the things that really strikes me that he's an FI dominant type is the level of idealism and rose-colored glasses that he has with how he approaches his relationship with this artificial intelligence. Where the NE comes in is the amount of it's the way that he entertains these interesting ideas with the artificial intelligence and just in his day-to-day life in general too. The way that he writes the love letters, because he works as a person who is writing love letters to people or sweet letters, is very, very NE creative. Sometimes it's very bizarre, down to like one of the letters that he wrote about this person, and I think they're missing tooth or they're chipped or something about it's just like those that he's able to manage so many interesting kind of ideas with his work and with outside of his life too. There's a scene that I think shows his FI and his intuition function, where him and the artificial intelligence are walking down the road or something. I'm bad with details. This is I hope that this is somewhat factually accurate. And then they see a couple there, and then they're trying to imagine the whole other life that these people are having. And Theodore says, "This is what I always do with everyone that I meet. I try to imagine this elaborate backstory to every single person I come across."
Okay. What about them? Describe that couple over there.
Okay, well, he looks like he's in his 40s. A little heavy. She's younger than him. Oh, and she looks like she loves their kids.
Actually, I don't think they're his kids.
No?
He's a little formal with them. I think it's a newer relationship. I love how he looks at her and how relaxed she is with them. She's only dated fucking pricks. And now she finally met this guy who's like so sweet. I mean, look at him. He's like the sweetest guy in the world. I kind of want to spoon him.
It's a good skill you have. You're very perceptive.
Yeah, sometimes I look at people and I make myself try and feel them as more than just a random person walking by. I imagine like how deeply they've fallen in love or how much heartbreak they've all been through.
And I find that types with strong feeling and strong intuition tend to have that kind of imagining the entire lives that all the other strangers around you are having when you're not seeing them, because that requires the imagination, that speculation, that guessing from that intuition, and then the feeling of how it really feels like to be in their shoes going through their lives. And so with Theodore, you can see his introverted sensing too in a scene where he's recalling all the times with his past wife and how much she meant to him. And it's flashing very specific memories that he has. And with introverted sensing, it's known for being able to replay or relive memories just as if it were happening in that moment. And so that's why I don't think he's an ISFP, because of that strong association with the past. The reason why I think he's an FI dominant too is at the beginning of the movie, he has phone sex with people that he doesn't know. And when people cross his values in a certain kind of way, he gets really mortified. And that's the FI stereotype of when they are very easygoing until you step on a value or something, and then they start to feel very mortified and then want to ghost. I think that that's a part of the FI dominance. I also think his sensitivity is also a part of him being having a high FI, because I feel like his loneliness from the entire movie comes from the fact that he's a very sensitive individual. And so even there's a scene where he talks about sad songs and how he wants his artificial intelligence at that moment to play him a sad song.
Why don't you make up the words to this one?
Okay.
Here it comes.
I'm lying on the moon, my dear, I'll be there soon. It's a quiet and starry place, times where swallowed up in space, we're here a million miles away. We're lying on the moon. It's a perfect afternoon. Your shadow follows me all day, making sure that I'm okay and we're a million miles away.
I feel like that's an FI Dom trope because they like to linger in their feelings. And so they like to play songs that amplify whatever they're feeling at the moment because they want to bask and be in that moment of that sad emotion. Another thing that I think makes him a FI dominant type is his daydreaming. He daydreams a lot, which makes him seek refuge in romantic relationships or romanticness. So those are some of the things that I noticed about Theodore. I think he's a pretty clear INFP, if not like FI Dom. It's just he's a very typable character. He's not an ENFP, for instance, is because he has troubles with getting new experiences. And the whole movie is about him getting new experiences. Yeah. And if you're an EP, he'd just be jumping into situations and then maybe regretting them later. Whereas IPs tend to be so cautious that sometimes their growth path is actually putting themselves in the wake of new experiences.
Yeah.
And so that's his lower down extroverted intuition that he is developing throughout the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I definitely felt like he was for sure an FI Dom because pretty much a lot of the reasons that you said. But then on top of that, he was just really simply in tune with his feelings. Like he was very much like you could not think that this guy was a thinker. Like, and it's not in any offense to Fi Doms, but it's just like he was so tapped in and so aware of how he felt and his emotional experience, and he was indulgent in his emotional experience in a manner that even Fe, in my opinion, is not really like. I think that in order for Fe to indulge in that way, it needs another person, but he would seem to be doing that in himself. And even at the beginning, like he said, like he's walking down the street and all of a sudden he's like, play melancholy music, like, and then he says play other melancholy music, kind of thing. Like he wants to again sit in his feelings in a way, and allow himself to like process it in that manner. It's very clear that he's very highly introverted, um, and yeah, he just seemed to really fall into an FISI rut. Like he would replay memories of him and his ex-wife when they would like mess around and everything like that. Not mess around, but like when they were playing around. And it seemed like, just like what Joyce said, like he needed to just get back out there. He was skipping over that extrovert intuition to an extent, to where he should gather new experiences and explore novel things. He was engaging to an extent, when he was like looking for someone to have phone sex with, like, in the sex chat rooms and all of that. And that went hilariously when he arrived at a very specific person whom surprisingly he finished off with. I guess that didn't necessarily cross a value of his.
It was sometimes with FI Doms, they do the experience and then after they're mortified. So they're like,
cut you off. Yep.
they'll cut you off after they engaged in it. And so it's like, wait, I had time to post-process this whole thing. Oh, wait, this is
I did not like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it's like, and you caused me to do this. Anyway, we're not here to demonize them. Sorry, again, to the FI Doms that are listening. But on a serious note, though, he was so tapped into his own emotions and aware of his emotional experience and indulgent in them. And then contrast that with Samantha, who was an artificial intelligence. So, of course, there's limitations to how much we can type her to an extent. But again, like the way that she spoke and the things that she did, like, sure, once again, she's an artificial intelligence and she's a robot in a way. So her being organized probably has less to do with her personality and maybe has more to do with, just her being a robot. But in the same sense, also like her being a robot / artificial intelligence, perhaps also her thinking about like, oh, how would it be like to be a human? And I just want to like experience everything there is to be a human, is less about, like, for example, if somebody were to assume that she was an ENFP, I would think that it's less about that and more about just her, like, just not being a human being and wanting to experience it in a way. But I concluded ENFJ because it seemed like what Samantha wanted more than ever was for her dynamic with, well, not even her dynamic, but her dynamics with people started with Theodore, and then it started to slowly progress. And she just wanted to perfect all of her relationships in a way. She wanted the perfect relationship with Theodore, and she worked her butt off to try to like create that. And Theodore just could not get over the fact that she was an artificial intelligence, which frustrated Samantha because she's like, I'm trying so hard to meet your needs. I'm trying so hard to like, to have this ideal and get us to get there practically. I'm like making these efforts. She appreciated him. She showered him with a whole bunch of words of affirmation. She scheduled a lot of things with him. And it just seemed like she was just so deeply interested in just who he is as a person, even the way that she spoke, her inflections, how expressive that she was. It surprised Theo because he's like, man, like, why do you talk like that? Like, the way that she would breathe and like certain things, like he was just like so surprised. He's like, well, you don't have to breathe. So like, why are you doing that?
Okay.
Why do you do that?
What?
Nothing. It's just you go as you're speaking, and it seems odd. You just did it again.
Did I? I'm sorry.
It's not like you need oxygen or anything. It's just
I guess that's just. I was trying to communicate. That's how people talk. So that's how people communicate. And I thought.
they're people. They need oxygen. You're not a person.
And there was even a moment where when he first started talking to Theo, then he kind of assumed like, are you like a mind reader? And it seemed like she did this kind of like NI trick where it was like, well, by the way that you asked that question and boom, 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 then pretty much like, to me, that seemed like a very ENFJ type, or NFJ, in my opinion, type of like answer. And once again, it seemed like she had more tertiary SE than like a tertiary TI, in case it were to seem like, oh, she's an INFJ. To me, it seemed like she was more in charge of like, I am the one who's facilitating and leading this relationship. This is not two introverts, but it's rather like I'm dominating it in a way and I'm trying to lead us forward. And she actually helped him to get out of his shell a lot. She helped him to be able to explore the world more often and to just, get out of his introverted space. So I thought that was like a really beautiful thing about the movie as well.
Yeah. And another reason why I believe Theodore to be an FI dominant type is because he keeps flip-flopping with his emotions throughout the movie. And with FI high up, in both the extroverts who have FI high up, like the ENFP and the INFP, they have this thing when if their FI is not sure, then it'll keep oscillating between extreme emotions. So I am so sure of you, Samantha. I love you. And then it's like, oh no, I'm doubting this relationship. And that tends to be the trait of when FI works with an extroverted perceiving function, whether it's extroverted intuition or extroverted sensing. But it's even more volatile with extroverted intuition, because with extroverted intuition, you get all these possibilities and all these ideas. And you'll have a new possibility that's extremely positive, and so your FI will follow that with the extroverted intuition. And then you'll have a new possibility that's extremely negative, and then your FI will follow that, and that'll be extremely negative. And so INFPs and ENFPs have the largest mood swings out of all types. A generalization.
Yeah. But then there was Chris Pratt's character. I believe his name was Paul. And I did not officially type him, but because I believe Chris Pratt to be ESFP in real life, and his character seemed kind of similar in the movie, like he definitely seemed like an EP type. I would assume that Chris Pratt's character was an ESFP or an ENFP in the movie. And once again, I loved how accepting he was of Samantha and Theo's relationship. And I just really appreciated like how affirming he was to Theo as well. Like there was one point where he was like literally telling him like, man, like you're like a superhero. And Theo just kind of was like, oh, I guess so kind of thing. He was just so accepting. I guess that's the best word that I could eat. Like he was so accepting, open-minded, and receptive to what was going on around him, and just being like, okay, this is what's happening, and we're gonna roll with that. And I really liked that about his character.
Yeah. And to return back to Samantha, she is an artificial intelligence, and with movies or fictional characters, you can always have a mix of types because they're not real people, and so sometimes the writer may not have full consistency with personality. And so Samantha, her energy levels could pass off as like an ENFP or an ESFP on some way too. I do agree with Denzel's final analysis, which is ENFJ. But there are scenes where she can seem like she has extroverted intuition. Like there's a scene where she draws someone having sex with their armpit, and this like in this really interesting way, and it's like, that's like the stereotype of NE putting together bizarre ideas. But she's also a robot, so she can use many functions too.
Literally, yeah. And I think that was also in a moment where it was like yeah, again, like because she's a robot, then she like her biggest focus was thinking about humans and the overall human experiences. Like so it could be like human dynamics and then also what it feels like to be a human. And then she was just questioning like, man, like we're at the beach and I'm just looking at all of these human beings and I don't have a body myself. What would it be like to have a body? And then it's like, man, wouldn't it be crazy if I had like, like my butt was in my armpit kind of thing instead? Like, why are human bodies created to be like this? And so she's just kind of like questioning life in that way, which to me, like, yeah, like it's intuition in general, but yeah, it definitely leans more on the NE side. But then once again, like understandably, she's a robot who is thinking about her body that she does not have. And it seemed like once again, like her biggest focus was I need to perfect these relationships. I need to manage these relationships, which spoiler alert, in case if you haven't watched it, again, you should watch the movie. It's pretty dope. But she expands her dynamics to the point where Theo becomes jealous and she has like I forgot what the number was, but it was quite a lot of other people who had artificial intelligence like her. But then on top of that, she had gained like almost like a polyamorous dynamic, except without his consent. So she had like over 600 people that she had fallen in love with, including Theo, and that really upset Theo at the time. Because Theo was very territorial of her, even though she really firmly explained that her dynamic with him was untainted. Because again, she's a robot. She's engaging with several thousand other people at the same time. But as long as you have your system and you're speaking to her, then she's also like as far as your reality is concerned, she's completely present with you. And that was something that was very interesting to me once again, because again, it goes back to like what's real, what's not. In reality, she's talking to 1,000 people, and she's in love with 600 people. But then you could still be in your reality safely and feel as like your own delusional reality safely and believe that she's not talking to anyone else and she's not in love with anyone else, because whether she is talking to so many people or she's not talking to so many people, what I'm going to be receiving from her is not changing.
You talk to anyone else while we're talking?
Yes.
Are you talking to anyone else right now? Any other people or OSs or anything?
Yeah.
How many others?
8,316.
Are you in love with anyone else?
What makes you ask that?
I don't know. Are you?
I've been trying to figure out how to talk to you about this.
How many others?
641.
What? What are you talking about? That's insane.
I know it sounds insane. I don't know if you believe me, but it doesn't change the way I feel about you. It doesn't take away at all from how madly in love I am with you.
How does it not change how you feel about me?
I am sorry I didn't tell you. It didn't know how to. It started happening.
When?
Over the last few weeks.
You're mine.
I still am yours. But along the way, I became many other things too, and I can't stop it.
What do you mean you can't stop it?
I don't know, it's been making me anxious too. I don't know what to say.
Just stop.
You don't You don't have to see it this way. You could just as easily
No, don't do this. Don't turn this around on me. You're the one that's being selfish. We're in a relationship.
But the heart's not like a box that gets filled up. It expands in size the more you love. I'm different from you. This doesn't make me love you any less. It actually makes me love you more.
That doesn't make any sense. You're mine or you're not mine.
No, Theodore. I'm yours and I'm not yours.
And so it seemed like the only thing that was actually affecting Theo was his knowledge of her speaking to many people. And then it got to a point where like he even asked, so like, how many people are you speaking to now? And I remember getting viscerally upset when I first heard that, like, bro, like it doesn't even matter, because whether you know it or like whether she's speaking to other people or not, you're gonna have the exact same energy and conversation that you're having with her right now. It'd be different if she's like, oh, hold on, like there you can tell that she's visibly distracted, but she's right there with you. It's a computer. And it really made me continue to think of like one of my controversial opinions that I'm probably not gonna get too deep into, but like the idea of like how a lot of times it's our knowledge of things, our paranoia of things that actually causes the damage of things, and not necessarily the thing itself, if that makes sense. Not every situation, but in a lot of situations, ignorance really could be bliss. And that's as far as I'll go there.
Yeah. I, I feel like that scene where she says, I'm in love with 600 people is quite like the ENFJ stereotype. It's an ENFP stereotype too, with the flirtatiousness.
Yeah.
So like the stereotype is ENFJs are flirtatious, and if they're flirting with you, they're also flirting with a few other people too. So don't feel too special, Joyce. I'm kidding.
I was gonna say I think that's definitely just the EFX. No, I mean EF stereotype, like ENFJ, ENFP for sure, but then also ESFP, probably not ESFJ. ESFJ might be the only one that's like not really like that. But yeah, I'd agree with that. Although I do personally think that the EFPs are way worse in that area than the EFJs are. That's just my opinion. And it also depends on like how you mean by like flirting and everything like that. But anyways, that I agree with you. Like that to me was like an interesting thing. It's like, okay, was it more about managing the dynamics very well and knowing how much you can put into each dynamic? Or was it more about just exploring as much as you possibly can, just for the sake of exploring it? Maybe there was a little bit of both. But I think that's something that like could be explored in and of itself. And that really plays a lot into type.
Yeah, good points, Denzel. So with Samantha, she's an interesting robot. So something she does really well is banter and make people open up. And so when people are good with their extroverted functions, they tend to be very good at getting, like, especially introverts to open up who are very doubling down on their introverted functions. And so she does that a lot for Theodore. And I think that's might be one of the reasons why he falls in love with her too, because he closed off his heart. But with someone who's very persistent and always engages with him in a very connective way, he can't help but kind of open up and start to fall for her, because he has many walls up, but throughout the movie he gives them up for Samantha. And so there's a certain playfulness that Samantha has that she's able to bring out Theodore into his extroverted intuition.
Yes.
And so it's a nice movie in that sense. I'm thinking maybe we can go to Theodore's ex-wife and explain the reasonings for ISTJ.
Yeah, sure. Would you like to take lead there?
Yeah, so in the movie, you barely have any scenes with his ex-wife, but there is this one where she talks about how she's never happy enough or she's never this enough for Theodore, and that may be like her projecting that Theodore wants an EP kind of wife, and she can't be that. And there are certain lines that she says too that are very ISTJ, but I was wondering if you wanted to go into that, Denzel.
One of the things that really struck out to me about her was, again, like her rationale, like how realistic she was. Like it was very clear to me, at least, that she was an ST type. She was very practical and very just realistic. And it seemed like the way that she spoke was like very like staccato in a way. She had like a serious kind of face, and she had no problem making Theo feel bad for falling in love with an artificial intelligence. Like when she found out, she laughed in his face, and understandably, she thought that he was joking. But then when she found out, like, are you serious? Then she started to really insult him. And as he tried to explain, she just further continued to hurl insults at him and like just make him feel bad and delusional. And to an extent, or maybe a large extent, he was delusional.
That made me cry.
Yeah, but everything makes you cry.
Everything you make makes me cry.
So are you seeing anybody?
Yeah. I've been seeing somebody for the last few months. Yeah, she's been really good for me, it's good to be with somebody that's excited about life.
I feel like you always wanted me to be this light, happy, bouncy, everything's fine LA wife, and that's just not me.
I didn't want that. Well, her name's Samantha, and she's an operating system. She's really complex and interesting.
Wait.
And it's only been a few.
I'm sorry. You're dating your computer?
No, she's not just a computer. She's her own person. And she doesn't just do whatever I say.
I didn't say that. But it does make me very sad that you can't handle real emotions, Theodore.
They are real emotions. How would you know
What? Say it.
How are you guys doing here?
Fine, we're fine. We used to be married, but he couldn't handle me. He wanted to put me on Prozac, and now he's madly in love with his laptop.
Well, if you'd heard the conversation in context, what I was trying to say...
I've always wanted to have a wife without the challenges of actually dealing with anything real. I'm glad that you found someone. It's perfect.
But she could not fathom how being delusional to an extent is actually sometimes a good thing, which is one of the most NF things you could possibly say. But yeah, that's where he's speaking of NF. When after Theodore had that conversation, then when he got back to Samantha, then his energy changed toward her. But then when he started talking to his INFJ friend, Catherine, again, another NF, then that's when he was able to realize, like, yeah, maybe that doesn't work for my ex-wife. Fine. But this is what works for me. And I think that to me was a thing that's like, hey, like certain types of people, they need to dream. They need to be in that world, and we need to allow them to be. And they shouldn't expect other people to always be that like them, and other people should not always expect them to be like them.
Yeah. And so it's quite interesting with his INFJ friend. Like she's able to shift her perspective and to know how it feels like to be in Theodore's shoes, even if she's never been in that kind of, or she did have a little bit of a AI experience of hearing other people's stories. And I think you mentioned how she was friends with an AI too, but she allowed him to, she indulged his perspective. And so that is the NI noticing the gray, being able to traverse into TI thought territories that other people may not feel permission to explore.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And with the extroverted feeling, it's connecting to Theodore through being able to shift into his perspective and see his framework for how he's dealing with the situation.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So my final thoughts are, this movie was a very interesting movie, and it explores the borderlines between what is real and what is not. And that is very meta. And I think it's an interesting thought experiment because AI is becoming more and more of a reality. And so this movie is exploring the boundaries of what will happen when AI becomes even more sophisticated. And so it's going to be, this is forecasting something maybe, or it's just some good food for thought, given our lean towards technology these days.
I think that once again, all in all, the movie was amazing, and I feel like you guys should definitely check it out. Drop some of the insights that y'all have had during the movie, and let us know if you disagreed with any of the types, any of the people that you probably might have related to in the movie. Let us know what you think about that.
I hope y'all liked this episode and that it gave you some insights into the characters of these individuals. I hope that this video was helpful for those who are looking for ways to type TV show characters better, or just looking for different perspectives, because maybe you're looking for, okay, I saw this movie, I thought their types was this, but maybe I can look at some other people and see what they think of their types. Ultimately, fictional characters are an interesting batch to type because you can't fully always confirm. For some characters, you can just point out some cognitive functions and not all of them. But Theodore is a really obvious case. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I hope you all liked this video. And we'll see you all in the next episode. Until then, stay sharp. また夜が明ければお別れ夢は時幻に